to talk a little bit about the festival itself. First of all, it's taking place November 2nd to the 6th, and we're in the second day today. If you're listening and it's Friday, very well organized website, by the way, if you want to take a look at what's going on. Opening night festivities. How did that go, Fia? Was that fun?
You know what, Elizabeth, I'm ashamed to say that I did not make the opening night festivities. I was in meetings at AFM.
Okay,
For
so
two
who went?
projects. Who
Who
went to
went?
that?
I went.
Robert, okay, tell me how it went.
Oh, it was great. Of course, Libby Bowl. So, the scene setting or the movie set, the scene setting first image was you walk into Libby Bowl at twilight. I mean, it doesn't get better than that, right? In Ojai. And but then Spencer the Gardener, the band, played about an hour set, and people were dancing in the aisleway, and that was fantastic. Lots of fun. The lights started coming up. They finished, and then Diane Ladd's film started. So it was a great evening.
And I want to just mention that we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but Robert Redfield is editorial and commercial photographer and filmmaker based here in Santa Barbara. And he did this movie that I looked at the trailer a number of times. It was absolutely fascinating. A story about our, I don't know who I want to call him, unofficial mayor, Spencer Barnett, aka Spencer the Gardener. And Spencer's been around, I mean, everybody's parties and weddings. And the film is entitled, however, More Than Just a Party Band. And it tells the story, sometimes really kind of heart-wrenching story of Spencer the Gardener. And it's really interesting to listen to the trailer. And by the way, I had to laugh about this. Somebody's mom said to Spencer, I guess it was Spencer's own mom, said, I wish you guys didn't grow up here so that you could see how fantastic it is to grow up here. It was just fantastic quote. Spencer grew up here in the 70s. Santa Barbara was very different. Surfing, basketball playing, tango dancing. Spencer, he achieves early fame, and then he's forced to rewrite his definition of success when faced with the music industry, the EMIs of the music industry, Columbia Records, et cetera, and then some really disturbing things in his own personal life. And he's, I don't know, I've seen him around town for years, 40 years of his own enduring quirky brand of music and entertainment style. What's so interesting about this trailer, and I want to talk to Robert about it, is that it feels like Santa Barbara, but it's a Santa Barbara that maybe we're leaving behind in a way. And that film is more as much about Spencer as it is about that kind of unique lifestyle. And I wondered if Robert would talk about that. I want to just quickly introduce the rest of the gang that's here today. I have Fia Pereira, her film, Paul and Tricia, The Art of Fluidity. We want to talk about that a little bit later in the show. And I also have with us the Bill Paxton Award winner. And by the way, this is the first year that the Bill Paxton Award has gone to a animated film. And we have with us Christopher Hills Eaton to talk about his film Driftwood, and his award-winning film, by the way. But Robert's got to attend a seminar at the break, and so what we want to do is want to talk a little bit about More Than Just a Party Band. I guess what I'm interested to know, Robert, is what gave you the inspiration, or did Spencer approach you? How did you discover this really rich material?
Yeah, thanks for asking, and thanks for having me on your show too. I think I'm pretty typical as a Santa Barbara resident in that I had heard of Spencer the Gardener just on the periphery. Yeah, he plays the fiesta, lots of fun, really good at parties. That's about all I knew 2 years ago. And then Emile Millar, who is the producer of the film, he and Spencer were talking about a project together. Emile's a producer and a musician, so they were talking about an album and maybe putting a show together. And Spencer said, "Well, why don't we add a documentary to that project?" And Emile and I, at the time, had been working on music videos, and Emile said, "Oh, okay." So Emile contacted me, and I said, "Yeah, I'm in." Little did I know, as I start researching, first of all, just Spencer's music from day one, way back. I started listening to the music. I thought, wait, is this the same guy? This isn't the party band guy. And it went from there. So it was a great introduction to somebody who I thought I knew, and it turns out I didn't know. And it was what I learned was a really good surprise.
How do you, when you've got, now this is, I'd love to also throw this question out to Fia as well. I was learning that Fia is an actress and a comedian and a filmmaker. And so this is about a public versus private persona, this question. So you're working with Spencer. He's so well known. He's got such a persona for years and years in town. Everybody knows him. How do you, as a director and a filmmaker, get down to the heart and soul of the person? This is a person who's used to being on stage, who's used to projecting an image, has a lifelong image. And it seemed to me that even in the little snippets of the film that I was watching, the trailers, that you got down to the real person. There was a quote where I see like a depth of emotion. You're standing on the ocean front, and it was something about a girl or something, and Spencer, I could see in his face some flash of the real man, and then you saw, oh, but a song is always about a girl, and now he's back to the public persona. How did you thread that needle, Robert?
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to the subject, Spencer. And for any filmmaker, this is the big question: is how open is the subject going to be? How candid are they going to be? And then how much permission are they going to give you to talk about the real them? And Spencer was great at that. And he also, early on during research, he shared a lot via emails about the early days and what made him tick and blah, blah, blah. I had to develop that because most people don't, self-analyze a lot. That's my job. And but it was him and his willingness, and also the way he expressed himself in front of the camera. The guy was ready when we shot the intimate stuff.
And Fia, would you opine on that public versus private persona? Because you've done both. You're behind the camera and you're in front of the camera. So tell me, how do you react to that kind of problem?
Well, I'm going to say that just to clarify, I always joke and say I'm a recovering actress and comedian. I'm not currently in front of the camera on doing stand-up. I'm so busy directing now and making content and films. But what I can say is this, to speak to kind of what Robert was saying, is that with Paul Whitehead, with my subject of my documentary, is he also, or they, excuse me, were very comfortable being on camera and being, private and public. And that having been an actor, that's what actors strive for, is to be very private and public. When you saw Phil Hoffman work, it's about being so comfortable in your own skin that you can really let the moments unfold and not try to fabricate in your mind how you're going to respond to a question. And so I felt like, just like you were talking about Spencer, Paul and Trisha were very comfortable with kind of talking about some very intimate and vulnerable things. So, I think this just when you practice, but just being comfortable in your body, to be comfortable in who you are. Yeah.
I want to for just 1 second, Robert, I just want to make it clear that Fia is talking about her film, which is at the Ojai Film Festival, which is Paul and Trisha, The Art of Fluidity. And, I have to say, I am a fan of Paul Whitehead. I've really been quite impressed with him, with with them, I should say. The art of fluidity dives into the colorful life of the well-known 77-year-old gender fluid British artist Paul Whitehead and his alter ego Trish Van Cleef, as they navigate their gender and artistic fluidity as two artists in one body. And this is a real interesting topic, and we'll talk about that in the second half of our show today. But I wanted to get Fia's input on this idea of public versus private persona and how a filmmaker gets to the heart of that. And she referenced Paul and the fluidity that she had to have as a filmmaker. Back to Robert. Robert, you were about to say something when I interrupted. Please go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. No, I was actually going to ask Fia, like, wow, how did you pull that off? I mean, talk about an intimate topic. I'm intrigued. That must have been, yeah, what was that like?
Well, we will definitely share, we'll see each other's films. Absolutely. I've known, Paul Whitehead is my partner's, who's also the executive producer of the documentary, his best friend, their best friend. And, so I have that frame of reference through Adam. And I became good friends with Paul and Trisha. But from a filmmaker's perspective, and I really had to step back and allow them, I would, ask questions and we'd delve and we'd go down the rabbit hole. And then I just kind of felt like it was challenging at times, but then it was also like they're very much of an open book because they've been such a public persona for so long. Paul Whitehead is a very well-known artist in the UK.
Yeah.
If you Wikipedia him, he's very well-known and famous. And so all of the things that, is very, very well-versed in kind of how he's going to respond and how they're going to respond. But I think I think we had some wonderful surprises, some vulnerable moments talking about the shift and perception and acceptance and things around their fluidity and all those things. So it was a beautiful process, and it was very much the last thing I would say about this is that I there was a part of me, I had to step back from editorializing and just allow the subject to be who they are. And I think that's challenging as a filmmaker because we want to get the drama in there. We're thinking about how we're going to build the narrative. And
Right.
if you just let it unfold, then you'll be surprised by all these gems. And then you can build an even richer tapestry of narrative.
Did you ever have to hold back on asking too personal of a stuff, or maybe edit out something that you?
Yes, there was a lot of stuff I was very intrigued because Paul and Trisha are obviously gender fluid, but also bisexual and also like bigender. So there are two beautiful personas in there, two people in there, and they have different, proclivities and attractions. And that's, so I was very interested from the male perspective and the female perspective and how that was, with different, sexually and all those things. So that to me, but did not make it in the cut because I wanted to stay with the fluidity of their artwork and their art, artistic and spirituality and all this other stuff that that to me was going down that could be an episode. But yes, it was challenging because you think, wow, this is really enticing for people. This is what film festivals want, right?
Yeah.
And I just had to go, what, this is not the story that I need to tell right now.
What's really interesting about both of what Fia is saying to Robert is that there's a subtext here, which, I have known of Paul Whitehead's work as an artist for years. And then Spencer, I mean, for however long I've been here, there's been a Spencer. And the backdrop is aging. Right. So it's the idea of the artist as the artist ages. And, that was what intrigued me about the idea of both of your films. I can't wait to see them. But there is this idea of the aging artist and an aging artist in a culture that looks at artists. Thank God for people like Paul McCartney, who's still touring at 80 something plus. This is a culture that doesn't really respect an aging artist. And that's an important thing. I think Richard's giving us that quick little sign. We got to go to quick break. I love to hear your reaction about this ageism issue in the cultural artistic community as well when we get back from the break. Let's go to quick break. Richard, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Elizabeth.
Okay, let's go to quick break. We get back. We're speaking today with three wonderful filmmakers from the Ojai Film Festival, and opening night was last night, and this is November 2nd. Then the festival goes on till the 6th, and there is way many beautiful films to see. Go to the website there, and you'll see some incredible. OjaiFilmFestival.com is your website. You're going to see what's up, and can't miss some of these. We are speaking today with Fia Pereira, Robert Redfield, and Christopher Hills Eaton. Christopher Hills Eaton is the Bill Paxton Award winner. The first time an animated film is an award winner at the Ojai Film Festival. Don't turn that down. Back in a sec.
And you are clear.
Ooh.
Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Hey, you haven't been able to talk. I hope we haven't been hogging it.
Oh no, it's great. I wanted to jump in. I once actually produced a documentary about the circus school that I worked at in San Francisco.
Oh,
And so
a circus
talking
school.
about vulnerabilities and having people, show them true selves. I was like,
Yes.
oh, I'm very familiar with that. And you just kind of sign up for the journey, and then you go along with it, and you go wherever you can. But
A circus school.
yeah.
Wait, you had me at that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
I've had a circuitous path. I was in law school. I was a civil litigation paralegal. Then I quit and joined the circus school, and then made the documentary, and then moved to Portland, Oregon, and I was a treatment-free beekeeper, even though I'm allergic to bees.
Wow.
It's just it's been a journey, but
Nice.
yeah, the documentaries I've executive produced 2 documentaries now.
Wow.
And yeah, they're some of my favorite things, because the best ones start one way and then dart and go another, and we're all along for the ride. But
Yeah.
yeah, looking
It-
forward to
it-
seeing all of our we're all screening on Monday night, right?
I'm screening during the day,
Okay.
at 1 o'clock.
Okay,
And then I
perfect.
think you guys are at night, right?
Yeah, it's the 7 o'clock one.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see Driftwood, and I'd love to see Robert, your film as well. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
great.
more
Good.
than a party band.
Yeah, we have to share each other's links. It's are you were you yeah, I was at AFM yesterday, and that is very interesting, finding distribution for documentaries. I know that's probably a whole side conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm all ears for you guys. You're more experienced than I am. So yeah. Have you
Yeah.
ever run into Film Hub? Is that what it's called?
All right, stand by.
I'll tell you more about that later. We can talk
Thank
about
you.
that.
In 3,
great.
2, 1, you're live.
Welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart, and I'm celebrating today the Ojai Film Festival. It opened on November 2nd. It'll be going on till November the 6th. Take a look at some of the films, OjaiFilmFestival.com. And I'm speaking with 3 filmmakers, really impressive films, all 3 of them. Robert Redfield covered our unofficial mayor, Spencer Barnett's, aka Spencer the Gardener, well known, famous in town. And he made a film called More Than Just a Party Band. And we're talking a little bit between the 3 of them. It's so interesting because during the break, when all great things are said, the 3 of them were really talking with each other about how you get to the real person in a documentary. Fia Pereira was opining on this quite eloquently because of her film, Paul and Tricia, The Art of Fluidity, where she covers gender fluid British artist Paul Whitehead and his alter ego, Tricia Van Cleef, a very famous artist. I mean, I've known of him for years. And then we have Christopher Hills Eaton, who also was talking about a documentary film he made. Now, he's the Bill Paxton Award winner for Driftwood this year, film, a documentary that he made about circus school. How interesting is that? I want to switch quickly back to Robert. And Robert, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of aging. Spencer is not a spring chicken anymore. He started off in an industry where he was sort of the kind of a Beach Boy vibe with the group. He had the Tan. Can you tell us a little bit about how did you negotiate that the aging question in
Yeah.
your
Although not covered explicitly, aging is definitely a part of it because Spencer has gone through 3 physical emergencies throughout his adult life, and so the comebacks from them were an important part of the backbone of the story. And then I won't give away the ending, but I wanted to make sure that this movie was not all retrospect looking backwards because the guy's still thriving. And so in the ending, even though it's physically obvious, it's visibly obvious that he's not a spring chicken. The way he deals with it is it's typical Spencer thing. So yeah, aging, yep, we're all dealing with it.
How did and I know he was at the opening night and he played for the opening night. What was his I bet you everybody asked you this, but I have to ask, did he like the film?
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you asked it. Yeah, that was well, I credited him as co-writer because well, for obvious reasons. And so yes, he did because uh, we there were times where we edited it together.
How was that working with somebody who's not in your industry?
Yeah, or someone who's not in your head. It's a challenge if you're even working with an editor or you're a producer or yeah, it's I don't know. There must be an elegant word for the pain and pleasure, but it's a combination of it all. But he's a great guy to work with. That one thing about his outward persona that matches the reality of the personal is he's a great guy to work with. He's yeah, he has a big heart. He doesn't hold back on though how he feels is very clear. So all that really made the editing production process.
Now, just I have to ask, you're about to leave us to go to your seminar, and what is your seminar about?
Oh well, I'm just an attendee there, so but it's Bruce Novotny. He's talking about screenplay and all that, so I'm interested in attending that. But I can be a little late. This is fun.
Okay, all right, we'll enjoy you for a few more minutes. Another question for you. So, in regards to um, the harsh music industry that Spencer had to face, how did you how did you personify the industry as a what do you call it, protagonist, antagonist? What was the antagonist angle to the harsh music industry? What was the reaction? What was the reaction that Spencer had?
Yeah, that's a good question. Without giving away specific lines in the film, they were young. They were for a while managed by Spencer's mom's friend. So, you know, it was a local thing. They were young, it was local. They didn't have anybody looking out for them. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away too much stuff, but it's maybe that's enough said right there. You know, you can imagine EMI was a major label at the time, and they got signed very easily. They and they thought, well, yeah, this is the way it is. We're really good. Major bands, got major labels going to sign us up. We're going to be famous. We'll be done by we're 23. And I think now, we all know that things are more complicated than that, and that's what they learned.
I have to mention to you that my partner is a professional photographer, and he's been shooting Hale Milgram's presentations at the Libero for years now, where Hale was the former president of Columbia Records. And Hale had known everybody in the industry starting from the 60s. In fact, he was the discoverer of many people that are, totally famous today. And yes, I kept on thinking as I was watching that trailer of how these artists that have no really background in business and management were faced with this massive machine, and I've become friendly with Hale over the years. And yes, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, how Spencer handled that.
Yeah, it is a machine. And no, you've explained it really well. There's the artistic side and then there's the business side, and both can't exist on their own. And unfortunately, the trump card is owned by the business side, right? They're the ones that bring it out into the world. Although some of that is changing now with our technology, and some people in business have no heart or understanding of the heart. At the same time, they have to deal with practicalities, and so yeah, that is an interesting thread unto its own, right? Outside of all these films, but as filmmakers, we face that. It's an acute love-hate reality.
I want to also ask you an interesting part of your bio, and then I was looking online a little bit for some of your work, that you help clients tell their unique stories through portraits, lifestyle images, and inspiring documentaries. So can we assume that if we've got a story to tell that we could get in touch with you? Are you selective with that? Do you work for hire, for example?
Yes, absolutely.
So if we've got an interesting topic, for example, or an interesting person, we can get in touch with you and we can actually pay you to make a documentary about this.
Yep, absolutely. In fact, I'm working on 2 projects now. One of them came as a result of this film, and it's a documentary. And yeah, I mean, there are so many incredible stories out there, and documentaries, I think, fulfill a very important task in our culture. Because as I learned, you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge a musician, an artist, anybody by their cover. And when you start digging, you come and you discover all sorts of fantastic things that are interesting, both locally, but also interesting, outside of the locality, universal themes.
Before we go and say goodbye to Robert, and then we're going to switch back to speaking with Fia and Christopher at the second half of the show, I want to give our listeners Robert's email, if I might, because Robert is, like he said, he's got 2 projects now that came from people approaching him saying, would you be interested in telling this story? So Robert is at Redfield, red as in the color, field as in field of daffodils, for example. Robert at redfieldpictures.com. And if you've got an idea, if you've got an approach, if you've got an interesting thought person, he is local. He is a Santa Barbara guy. And I was even thinking when I was looking around at your work, wow, I love for you to do my mom, things like this, But anyway, Robert, have a great seminar with Mr. Novotny, and we will meet you on the other side in Ojai. Thank you for being with us today. Richard, let's go to quick break. We get back from the break. I want to talk about... Bye, Robert. I want to talk a little with Christopher Hills-Eaton about driftwood, and I also want to work Fia into the question of this idea that we just heard from Robert. Very interesting insofar as the artist versus the machinery of business. And that is a super great topic for her to speak about, having been so close with Paul Whitehead, who had his, I happen to have a little bit more knowledge on this subject because, I mean, I've been an appraiser of fine art for 30 years. He actually was quite adept at working both sides throughout his career, and quite notorious for working both sides in his career. So I'd love to hear about that. We get back, we're going to talk about Paul and Tricia, The Art of Fluidity, and the Bill Paxton award-winning the film, which is an animated film, Driftwood. Don't turn that down. Back in a sec.
You're clear.
So Chris, where are you now? Where are you located?
I'm in Studio City right now,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, as soon as we end here, I'll pack up my things and head up for the night. And then yeah, my family has been in the East End of Ojai since like 1916.
Oh my God.
So
Wow.
yeah,
That's
we're
cool.
old timey Ojai folk. And but I
Nice.
grew up in Santa Barbara, so I'm familiar with the Gold Coast area.
Yeah, yeah. Now, did you know you mentioned James Paxton?
Mhm.
Is that Bill's
Yeah, that's
son?
Bill's son, and
And
he's
you
the
guys
one
work
who
together?
gives out the award every year. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you guys work together or you guys know no?
No, well, actually, no. The first year, so this is my third film that I've had in the Ojai Film
Mhm.
Festival. And so the first year I went to the awards brunch, and there was just a young couple my age sitting down at a
Yeah.
table. So I sat down, I said, "Is this the kids' table?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, sure." So we just started kind of chopping it up. And then people started coming over and saying, like, "Oh, it's the guest of honor." And then that year he got up and they had changed the name that year.
Yeah.
But after chatting with him, yeah, it turns out that he was a neighbor. His family lives down the street from our house in the East End, and he and his dad would take walks up there. And so
Oh,
it was very cool. But apparently he went to Thatcher right up the street in Ojai, where I went, where my composer Jack Sly went, where
nice.
two of my producers went. It was all a community effort. But apparently Jack was yeah, a year ahead of James at Thatcher, so they are
Nice.
friends. My composer, yeah, chats with him all the time, I guess,
Great.
and now it kind of gets to come a little full circle for us, which will be great.
Well, maybe are you guys gonna, do you think you'll have like a collaboration at some point?
You know, I'm really open to it because this is my sixth short film that I've done, and the first five were live action. And I'm building in that space. We just
Mhm.
took a chance on this animated project during the pandemic in
Mhm.
order to have something to move the ball forward. So yeah, there's definitely a return to live action in the future. I'm directing another short film in a couple weeks down here, and then yeah, who knows?
That's great. That's great.
Yeah,
I
you
missed
know, just
something. Where are you right now, Chris?
oh, I'm in Studio City right now, but
Okay.
I'm heading up to Ojai, and yeah, as soon as we're done here, I'll head up there and I'll be around for the weekend. And my parents live in the East End, and we've lived there since 1916. So yeah, we're actually related to the Gorham family, in all of its, glory of that one little road out on
Hmm,
the edge of town. Um, but yeah, it's yeah, Ojai's my
cool.
thing, but Studio
Okay, we're
City.
coming back in 3, 2, 1. You're live.
Welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart celebrating the Ojai Film Festival. I just always love the films. I always love the filmmakers. Unique. Ojai is just the most unique place because it's so creative, small town, but so many creatives. Richard once said you can swing a dead cat, know how you're going to knock out artists left, right, and center. It's just an amazing little community with massive amounts of talent, and we're proving it today. We're talking with two filmmakers. I want to delve into Christopher Eaton's film Driftwood, and it really resonated with me, and I'll tell you why. It has this well, just to back up a little bit. So my scholarship, Chris, is in the field of material culture, which is it's a type of study that does not actually use books as first source material, but uses things as first source material. So the idea that driftwood has to do with the inanimate objects that help mark and define and actually symbolize parts of our lives. That to me was just, wow, finally a film that actually does that and says that. And then I find out that your mom, Marilee Eaton, was a local mosaic artist in Ojai, and that she worked with objects and stuff. And by the way, one of the core studies of people that look at material culture the way I do is we study ancient mosaic art, because it's a combination of so many so much material. You've got architecture, you've got the either the glass or the stones or whatever. It's a combination of talents and a combination of material. And so it's a way of expressing that materials can work together to make one solid statement. So when I found this out about your film, I thought, wow, how interesting to me. Tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me chat about driftwood. Driftwood, well, I guess I will go back to my mother was a mosaic artist. She particularly enjoyed picassiette, which is broken things, right? And it's taking broken items and putting them together into a new shape, into a new form. And I think that the idea that even if something is broken, it doesn't lose its value. I always thought that that was a very helpful and a beautiful way to look at life. She also told me very much that, life is hard enough. So the point of life is to make art that makes it easier for somebody else to be a human being. And so I do think that predominantly that comes about in the form of art and tangible items and the experiences that we impart and impose on the items around us. So I'm a filmmaker. I've been writing and directing films and making bigger and bigger pieces. And I have a very supportive community and team around me to help me bring my ideas to life. And when the pandemic happened a couple of years ago, I was in Ojai taking care of my parents, making sure that they were staying out of harm's way. And my team said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, I will go ahead and look through my ideas and see if we have something that we could explore in the animation space. And so this idea about driftwood as an item, as this thing that kind of floats aimlessly about in the waters, can all of a sudden be the source of someone's life. They can save their life. And then what happens if they took them with them instead of leaving it out in the water to potentially do the same till the end of time? What if someone gave it the gift of life in exchange? And so this idea was kind of born of a sailor gets thrown overboard during the attack on Pearl Harbor and survives by holding on to a piece of driftwood. And then when he's rescued, he refuses to let go and ends up taking it with him. And they have a relationship over the course of the rest of his life that continues to remind him, as well as those around him, of the value that we can give to things and the value that inanimate objects bring to our lives. And it manifests itself in so many ways. We like to think of the film as the giving tree meets the first 48 seconds of Up. Just a beautiful dialogueless adventure into a relationship.
And it's so interesting because this is exactly what I love about, the material world, is that there is a relationship, and people tend to degrade the relationship and say, well, that's materialism. But the interesting thing is that for this interview, I was thinking about what an inanimate object that's a work of art, for example, that isn't even a work of art when you find it, like your mom's this technique of using broken things to make art. I am I guess I have a problem, a mental problem, according to my family. I go into all kinds of estate sales and thrift stores, etc., and I find orphans. And my orphans are usually two-dimensional works of art that are unsigned, paintings and drawings, etc., that are unsigned, that I see something in, and then I work on them and fix them and make them speak again. And I have now 2 storage lockers full of my orphans. And I, of course, pay $300 each storage locker. So, and then I just want to mention the excerpt from Delphi Works of Vasily Kandinsky, who said, "Whither is this lifetime tending? What is the message of the artist? Well, the message is to send light into the darkness, such is the duty. An artist is a man who can draw and paint anything, everything." And I thought, oh, I'm just going to shoot that past Christopher.
Yeah, thank
and
you
see
for
what he thinks of
that.
Kandinsky.
No, I that's a beautiful quote. I would say I do have I grew up in an artistic household, and I do have a degree in fine arts. I did a lot of studio drawing, but I do believe that the first job of a director is to hire people that are better than you at whatever it is you're seeking to do. And I did provide 76 pages of storyboards for our animated short. But ultimately, we made the choice to have somebody else animate it, Aaron Brown, and he did a beautiful job. He actually ended up doing most, if not all of it himself, the backgrounds, the characters, the settings, all of it. And it did take us 3 years to get there, because life finds a way, life gets in the way. And above all else, we are humans trying to do our best with what we can. But in the end, yeah, he put a great piece together for us. And yeah, we're very proud of the Driftwood story we've got.
Well, thank you very much for that, Chris. And if you'd stick with us, I want your help. I want to talk a little bit with Fia Pereira, Paul and Tricia, The Art of Fluidity, a subject that I've been following for a long time in my career, and that's British artist Paul Whitehead and his alter ego, Tricia Van Cleef. I just marveled that no one's actually done this before. No one's made this film. And it was, I mean, I was so happy to read about this. Finally, someone's made this film. It's been calling out to be made for a long time. Let's go to a quick break. We get back. I want to know what got Fia to finally do this film that the world needed to have happen for a while. Don't turn that down. Back in a minute.
You're clear.
Richard. Thank you.
Oh, Chris, I just love that.
You'll
I
have
love
about
that
6
about
minutes
the-
when we come back from break.
I love the
Okay.
I loved, the spiritual aspect of your film. I have 3 pieces of animation in our film as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, it is such, you learn so much, because when you go outside and you aim a camera at a street corner, you've got ambient noise, you've got background, you've got all of this stuff. And when you're making animation, that all has to be made. Every single thing has to be created. And it just, it opens the creative door and telling you, look at, we take so much for granted. And now, once you know how the sausage is made, you look at some of the high, like some of the Pixar big animation projects, and you're just blown away at the level of detail and thought and process and amazement that go into it. Yeah, where were your, how did your animations come into the process?
I will, and I this will be part of my response on air, but
Great.
basically, so Adam's son Ben and his best friend Jordan McLaughlin, Ben Fisk and Jordan McLaughlin are amazing filmmakers and animators, and so Adam commissioned them to do these 3 pieces of the shorts. Originally it was for a pop-up show, because Paul and Adam were going to go travel through Europe with because Adam had written a book with Paul, all of his life, all of it, covering all of his history, all of his works and his kind of trajectory. And so the book with the artwork, they were going to do these pop-up shows. They were going to have in the gallery this animated pieces with some other, some of Paul's works of art and, times, different things, news from Path A. And so that's how I was able to use them in the film, but
Great.
they did a great
Very
job.
cool.
So I didn't have anything to do with creating them.
Yeah, you just know their value when you see them. You're like, hey,
Yes.
bring them in.
Yes.
The stories that they can tell are super fascinating. It's been great. I like taking Driftwood around to all these other festivals. You're seeing all of these different animation styles and how people make animation and the stories that people choose to tell in animation. I just think it's been very enlightening, and both in the documentary space as well as in the nonfiction space. But
I have I will share with everybody. We have a graphic novel that also, speaking of animation, that's out, called Pippa and the Major, and it's Outlander meets Pirates of the Caribbean. So I'll let you guys know about that. We're up on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but it's really fun, and it has a lot of even though it's a graphic novel, you're able to tell that wonderful live action story with these great characters. But
all right, we're coming back. You have 6
Yeah.
minutes in 3, 2, 1. You're live.
Welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart speaking with 2 filmmakers that are represented in the Ojai Film Festival, going on now till November the 6th. Do take a look, ojaifilmfestival.com. It'll blow your mind. The kind of talent that comes together in Ojai is phenomenal. And I'm speaking specifically with Fia Pereira and Christopher Hills Eaton. And I want to get back to Fia here, because she did a film called Paul and Tricia, The Art of Fluidity. And it's about the 77-year-old gender fluid British artist Paul Whitehead and his alter ego, Tricia Van Cleef. Absolutely famous in the world, in my world anyway, as an art historian. Tell me, Fia, how did you, what pushed you to finally give the world this film?
Well, it's funny. I've been so busy working on this other piece called Mermaid, about this a trans little 10-year-old boy, Cassie, and their relationship with this Black drag queen and all this stuff. And I've been so busy on that impact film. And then I just had this opportunity during the pandemic. I know Chris was talking about, like, sometimes these beautiful things, tend to grow in when you look at that, the idea of, like, the world just stopped, and I feel like creativity just exploded, and it was a fertile ground. So Adam had these, I was mentioning this in the break, had commissioned his son and his son's best friend, Ben Fisk is his son, and best friend Jordan McLaughlin, really talented filmmaker, to do these 3 animated pieces about Paul and Trish, based on little sections of their lives. And that was supposed to be part of a pop-up show that they were going to travel, and then through Europe, and that would be playing in galleries. And unfortunately, coronavirus, COVID came, and that shut everything down. So he had those 3 pieces. And Adam said, why don't you, Fia, would you like to, I know you're working on all the mermaid stuff and some other things. Would you like to put this together as part of a short film? And I looked at the 3 animated pieces, and I started thinking, because I know Paul, and then I started really getting to know Tricia, and I love Tricia. I mean, Tricia, they're both amazing people, but Tricia, she's a star. She walks and people are like, oh my God, it's Bette Davis. Like, Tricia has that larger than life, and she's just very nuanced, and just, I think she's beautiful. And so, you know, I realized when I delved into it, this is a bigger story. And I was so interested thematically as, you know, I am in the LGBTQ plus space for now. I mean, I'm working on a big action, you know, big thriller pilot, you know, that's going to be really fun. I'm shooting that next week. But in these particular features, that space right now, it happens to be the LGBTQ plus themes, because I really want to help elevate those voices. So I was very interested in the duality, the beautiful duality of both Paul and Trisha, and the acceptance of who they are. And at 77, and what Trisha said to me, what they said to me, which was so moving, you know, you feel invisible when you get older sometimes. And so I knew that for me, I wanted to, and Adam also we wanted to celebrate them, to celebrate this incredible history, their artwork, who they are, what they've done in their lives, you know, the Billboard art shows, working with Peter Gabriel, all these iconic things, but also the courage to say, you know what, on one of the, you know, I'm not going to give away the last line, but it's really about don't put yourself in a box. I wanted to create a documentary that inspires people. It says whether you're an artist, whether you're grappling with coming out to your family, the community, whether it's gender, where it's identity, whatever you want to do, is don't worry about making other people feel comfortable. Make yourself feel comfortable. And it's about, I wanted to create a safe space for them and for other people to identify. And it's fun. There's a lot of really cool, we have over 250 pieces of their artwork. And you're talking about all the artwork you have. I mean, they have storage spaces too. So I think we need to go over there and see all their artwork. So yeah, I mean, that was really inspiring for me to jump off that beautiful, you know, jump into that kind of that story. And then it just like, they just kept giving me more beautiful stuff. And I was like, I always joke, I said, you know, this is going to get longer and longer, you know, the more, you know, just the threads. So it was really a wonderful experience. And we had one of their best friends, Spencer and Tracy, who are also gender fluid and lovely, be part of it as well. So, you know, it was a real gift. I'm so grateful. I never set out to make a documentary. I have to say there is another documentary that will be coming out. Oh,
Well, and what is that documentary coming?
sorry, I saw the finger, so I was like, oh, that the other documentary, I can't say anything too much about it, but there's another filmmaker who's been working on a documentary about Paul Whitehead for 7 years, and my piece is very different. So.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate so much you coming on, telling us about Paul and Trisha, The Art of Fluidity, Fia Pereira's film, and of course, Christopher Hills-Eaton, the Bill Paxton Award winner of this film festival, for his animated film Driftwood. Thank you both, and do everybody go to filmfestival.com. Just blown away by the quality of these films. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
You are clear.
Appreciate it. Thank you.